I just started reading Poet X. I'm enjoying it. Like, as I read it, I'm getting a lot of like, hey Fran, hey vibes. Besides that, my thoughts on it so far. I am 78 pages in and I'm enjoying it. I'm not really into like spoken word, so there's no iambic pentameter spoken word rhythm going in my head because that's annoying. On one of the podcasts I listen to, Jade and XT, they're adverse to spoken word because they're like spoken word's a little too hoteppy. If you have a family member that's like starting to get into spoken word, it's just like, ooh, watch out. They might be a little hoteppy, and we're not here for that. This book is far from hoteppy. A story told in verse that it kind of almost gets to like the core and feeling of like a novel without too much extra like world building, or there is world building and there is like details and stuff like that, but it's kind of like you're really getting into the character drive of the story. Although I don't have a lot, if any, intersections or correlations with Ziamata, like I can relate to her. I can relate to things that she says and stuff like that, especially like about family and with religion, like just those aspects of her story. I'm like I can relate to that. When she talks about that stuff, it's just like, yo, sis, that kind of hits home. Like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to drag me like this? Like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Like, but I appreciate your words. I appreciate your words. You know, I do find myself kind of relating to Twin because so far we've kind of gotten a little bit of how she sees Twin and how she sees him, and I love that she just cares about Twin, although she's just kind of like, I don't like that he's the favorite. Also on Twin, starts getting a little gay, and I'm like, I mean, it's not that gay, but it's still like, it's cute or whatever. Twin is doing something that I'm like, that's super relatable. Like, they playing basketball and you seen something that you like, sis, we be looking, we be checking it out, we be like, like, I get it, Twin, and I kind of hope there's a little bit more. It doesn't have to be all because it is Ziamata's story, but I definitely want Ziamata to kind of be like, hey, check back in a little bit with Twin and how he's developing as a character. I'm just loving the story so far. I'm loving the verse. I'm not verse poetry person, but this is working for me, and I would love to hear the audiobook version of it, just to hear what that sounds like compared to like reading it, because to me I'm just reading it like a novel. There's no iambic, I'm seriously, there's no iambic pentameter like spoken word. And if I was to tell you how this book goes, like there's none of that for me in my head because I that's not me. That's not, I don't really like it. That's very like, I'm in college for the, like, I just got into college. I just found out about like, you know, the black alliance on campus, and you know they're into spoken word, and I'm falling in love and I'm learning more about my blackness and America, you know. So now I'm going to tell you about how much I am so proud to be black, but also how oppressing America is, or something like that. I don't know. That's what spoken word is sometimes, and it's kind of, I don't know. Everybody's spoken word is different. Like what Beyonce did in Lemonade, that was fun because the girl who, I forgot her name, whose spoken word Beyonce used for Lemonade, I love her stuff. Beyond that, I love the story. I'm looking forward to reading more. Everything just flows so smoothly and so cleanly, and I'm appreciating that it's not a very long read. It's a quick read. I'm looking forward to reading the rest. I'm done reading The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Honestly, I would not have picked this book up because it was done in verse, and I was just like, the story seems interesting. Part of it was like, I wouldn't even really want to read about somebody's religiously oppressive mother and them like finding their voice through poetry. Like somehow it didn't resonate with me. I just love the flow, but I also connected so much to it. I grew up in I am in a religious family, but in our day and age, the more I learn, the more I experience, the more I see how Christianity and religion and my interaction with it, like, it just isn't working for me. Like, it just didn't it's not connecting for me. It's never connected for me for a long time. Being a child, like, being a part of Christianity, like, I didn't like going to church. And it's like pretty much the very cliche, superficial ways that, you know, you don't like to go to church because, you know, you fall asleep and it's boring and people are talking and it's just like adults and whatever. It's just not. But the thing is, as an adult, there are people who move from other states to New York and they're like, I need to find a church because they grew up in the church and they're connected to the church and all that stuff. And they're like, they have this desire to go to find a church home when they get to the city. And for me, I'm like, why would I do that? I'm just like, why would I even bother like finding a church when my family ain't gonna check me about this? Ain't nobody gonna check me. I'm a grown up I'm an adult. I'm living on my own in a whole nother city by myself, whatever, making new friends or whatever. Who's to tell me that I have to go to church on a Sunday? I will go to brunch. I'm not gonna go to nobody's church. Like, for what? Like, to fall asleep? And dress up informal. Like, I don't care about doing any of that. But people have that connection to church. Like, I knew, for me, like, with people around me I've grown up with, or just going to church, there are people who are like, you know, they're excited about, they're making connections, they are very social in church, all that stuff. They're very involved in church. And it's like, I didn't have too much of a desire to be that involved in church. And I think a lot of that comes from not feeling like I was accepted in church because of who I was, you know, like, I didn't feel like I was accepted. I didn't feel like I belonged because church doesn't, you know, believe that homosexuals really should be there. Although they are there and people just don't talk about it. And it's great to be spiritual because that's how I feel. Like, as cliche as that is, and as much as I didn't want that cliche to be me where, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, I'm just like, I do feel like I'm a lot more about trying to be more spiritual and more connected to my, like, spirituality and God, and finding that connection and understanding how that is my connection compared to, like, I have to go to church to do this. Like, I can, but it just doesn't feel right. Even if I go to a LGBT focused church, because there are churches like that in New York where they have lesbian and gay pastors and trans pastors, but I don't know. I'm still like very, very, but it's not about me. It's about Ziamata and her story. I love Ziamata's story. It connected with me a lot. It connected so much to my own thoughts and feelings about religion and church and Christianity and all that stuff. The moments where Ziamata's mother was so, like, I don't know, she was like mad extreme, and I was just like, girl, you wildin', what are you doing? Like, that's your daughter. And it's just like, but that shit is real. Shit like that is real. With, they see it as like, oh, you're paying penance and, you know, God is punishing you. But it's like, no, you're inflicting like religious abuse through religion on me, or you feel like you're doing the right thing for me and you're just abusing me by doing these things, like putting me to kneel on rice to teach me a lesson and to punish me for things that I've done that aren't even that serious, and you're not willing to talk to me and really like communicate with me about this. You're just like hard and fast rule, you're wrong, you're not doing the right thing. There's just no connection, no communication like that. And then her dad is like mad cut off, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, girl, Ziamata, I feel for you, sis. Like, I felt so much for her. Like, she's just so beautiful. I love Ziamata's interactions with her brother, with her friend Caridad, and also with the poetry club, like with Isabel, Chris, and Stefan. I thought all those moments were just so beautiful. They were just so light and like heartwarming, and I loved her relationship with Aman. And I loved even more that Aman was Trinidadian, or at least, yeah, he was Trinidadian because he came to New York as a child and he grew up in. And I was just like, girl, this book really like touched me. Like, it really came for me. Like, it really came for me and said, like, girl, like, I'm snatching the clothes out your closet. I'm snatching the wigs out of your wig closet. I'm snatching everything out of your life, sis. because you really thought I was not that girl. Like, this book is it basically said you thought I wasn't that girl, but I am that girl. And you needed to really check me out and have the experience with me. And it's like, I had the experience, girl, and I appreciate the experience. Thank you, Elizabeth Acevedo. She is just so adorable. Elizabeth Acevedo is just so adorable. I may just actually read another book by her. We will see. I love the encouragement from Miss Galliano. Like, seeing the potential that Ziamata had and then encouraging it and nurturing it. Something that her mother wasn't willing to do. And I think that happens to some people where you're not getting that encouragement and that upliftment in the home, in your, like, with the people closest to you that should be giving that to you, and you're finding somebody else outside of your home that is willing to be like, yo, you're great and I want to see you win. Because that's how I felt. Like, I have a best, like, one of my friends that I had in high school. I haven't talked to her in a while, but we can talk soon again because that's my home girl. She's got my goddaughter. I always felt like she was my second mother. She was the person that I can talk to about things that I can't talk to my mother about, you know, because she did. And it's not just because I could talk to her about these things, because you could talk to most any friend that you feel you're comfortable in confiding to, but I could talk to her about something and she can give me advice, like wise advice. Like, as much as she was like about my age, she was still a very wise, very maternal person, and that's why she has a daughter, and that's why that daughter's my goddaughter. She'd be like, be careful. She'd be like, do this and that. And she would be like very, very nurturing, like a mother. And I appreciated her for that, because when I can't talk to my mother about that and get that kind of feedback from her, or I didn't feel comfortable talking to my mother about that, I had her encouraging me, saying like, yo, you're great, do that, go for it, like, you're great. Like, I've managed to have friends like that who I can talk to about stuff and they can give me some feedback. Not to say that my mother doesn't give me that nurturing. I haven't been able to bring certain topics to her and have that moment of being nurtured by her, and having moments where I can be open and honest and free with her like that. Like, that's, like, if we can have those moments, it would be amazing. I have friends outside who are willing to be like, yeah, you're great, you're doing great, like, let's, like, I'm encouraging you, I'm nurturing you, here's some advice, you know, to help you through. And I appreciate Miss Galliano for being like her other mother, her external kind of like nurture, like taking up some of the slack where her mother isn't able to do that. I love Twin. Oh my gosh, Twin's like story where he's just like, oh, and they brought up like, you know, like homosexuality and like Christian, like very like Christian families, and like he can't really talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about it. He can't talk about it. I felt so bad. And then he's like dating that like redhead, and I don't know. I keep trying to figure out like Ziamata didn't do too much describing of like what the redhead looked like, but then at the same time she kind of didn't do too much describing with Amon. But I kind of put Amon two and two together with Amon. So he's like a little cutie with his little, you know, he got like a little Caesar or something. He's a cutie. He's fine. Like, he's a fine young fella, you know. But the redhead, I don't know. I feel like he's like a loose, like he's like a nice curly haired like redhead. But I like to think he's not like a super skinny, like, I don't know. I know I'm probably problematic for being like, he shouldn't be like a super skinny like redhead. He should be like a muscular redhead. I don't know, like very Archie of Riverdale. Maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. Like that Derek boy from Twitter, who's like the model. Maybe he could look like that guy. Like, just I love the story. I enjoyed it. I'm so glad I was able to read it. Thank you to Jessie, all for like kind of forcing me to read, well, not even so much forcing me, but like really encouraging me to read this book. And I read it and I resonated. I connected with Ziamata. Like, I don't have the same intersections. I don't have a lot of the same intersections with Ziamata, but I connect to her story, and that you know, you have a parent, a mother who's just like, yo, that's not gonna fly, and it is what it is, and you can't express yourself this way. And they're not trying to kind of help affirm you, try to build you up to be as confident as you can be as yourself. They're trying to, like, you know, say, you have to do what I say, and this is how it goes. Probably check out some more Elizabeth Acevedo. I will definitely reread this book. And additionally, I must add that while I read this book, I was listening to Thank You Next all week. So that was the soundtrack for reading this book. Thank You Next felt like an album that paired moderately well with reading this book. Everything on Thank You Next did not correlate with my experience reading this book. Standout songs that I feel like kind of connected with, especially the romance in the book, would be like Imagine and In My Head. Especially when Amon had his moment where he had a massive misstep in what happened with Ziamata. I was kind of like listened to In My Head and was like thinking like, yo, she's probably like thinking like, yo, like it was all in my head. I thought like you were a good guy. I thought you were the one, but you weren't. And I just kind of imagined you as being this good guy. And In My Head kind of spoke to that moment for me. The feel of Fake Smile also kind of felt like a song that kind of spoke to who Ziamata felt like she had to be accepted. Like she had to fake being this good girl, this nice girl. She didn't really try too hard to be this like good girl. You know, she just kind of like tried to comply with her mother, but at the end of the day, she was the girl that was like, I don't want to do this confirmation. I don't really want to be that demure, quiet girl that y'all want. That's not who I am. I want to be the girl that like I stand up for myself and I speak up, like if I want to and if I need to, like that's who I am. Definitely Thank You Next. It was the soundtrack for my reading experience of this book, and it was not a bad experience. I enjoyed both